If you're a Shark Tank fan or business junkie, check out the podcast Another Bite. Each week, Another Bite breaks down the biggest success stories and most disastrous failures to come out of Shark Tank. The hosts break down each company's pitch, analyze the deals that were or weren't made, and answer the million-dollar question, are they still a company? Whether you're an entrepreneur looking for tips or a Shark Tank fan that just wants to relive the drama, Another Bite's your deep dive into the world of Shark Tank. Just search for Another Bite in your favorite podcast app, like the one you're listening to right now.
I am in the studio.
Well, he's going to ban his studio. He's not going to have his fucking podcast, is he? Go and find 3 other super talented broadcasters. Good luck.
Am I starting now?
Yeah. You need to turn up the music.
Oh, yeah. Hello, EggChasers. This is the EggChasers Rugby Podcast, the podcast about rugby that doesn't take itself or the game too seriously. Back in the rugby dungeon, proving conclusively, as if it needed to be proved, that we are the only rugby podcast there for you 52 weeks of the year. I mean, we record this on a Sunday every week, as we are today. Phil's driven over. I mean, he is drink driving to make this podcast happen. He's had several sherries, some Prosecco this morning with his Bucks Fizz, and probably a couple of beers as well, and he's still popped over on Christmas Day.
And a load of Negronis, of course.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I've strolled round from my house. Turkey's just basted it, and I've popped round, and JB's
Probably from Wales.
come over from Wales and told his daughters, you will wait to open your presents till I'm back.
Yeah, I looked my grandmother in the eyes. She said, Jonathan, this might be my last Christmas. And I said, well, I've got commitments. What do you want me to do?
No, we're here because we appreciate you, and also we tied ourselves into saying we're the only podcast there for 52 weeks of the year. So that's a verbal contract.
It is.
We'd be
sued, wouldn't we? We'd be sued
we'd be
out
sued.
of existence.
Yeah, exactly, by Haskell. How are you guys? You all right?
Good. Feeling kind of semi-festive now. Mostly because I've been kind of eating and drinking almost every day since I broke up for work a week ago.
Yeah, I'm full
you had
of
a week off work? You had this week off work?
Yeah,
oh, wow,
yeah.
lovely.
I'm full of merriment. Went out on Tuesday, which was tremendous fun.
Nice.
The CrossFit gang.
Now the cult.
Yeah, the CrossFit cult. Been doing various Christmassy things other than that, and yeah, just really enjoying celebrating the birth of our Lord baby Jesus.
Well, I left. It was perfect, actually. No, I had a great one. So last night there were some friends had drinks, and just at a lead station, one of the places in Chorlton.
Oh, hang on! There's good photos that came out of lead station.
Sorry,
There's some good promotional photos that have come out of lead station.
yeah, the cheeky
There was
buggers.
a very good one I remember seeing.
Yeah, they didn't tell us when the photographer was coming around. Didn't tell us he was going to use it on Facebook as a
Absolutely fine with me.
Promotional
for.
He did a good job. He can
Was
take
it
pictures of me
promotional?
more
What was the campaign we got roped into? Hashtag, I don't know.
I don't know what it was.
Is it
Call a mate.
Yeah,
something
something
like
like
that.
drinking with mates, wasn't
Just
it?
like a picture of two guys, shooting the breeze. That's all it
Yeah,
was.
hanging out like friends do.
So Kate's parents arrived last night, and Connie was ill as well. So Kate went, do you know what? I'm not going to go. And I managed to not only get out of the house when my in-laws had arrived and my daughter was quite ill. I managed to get out of the house. I managed to get out of the house with brownie points. I was like, I'll go and represent.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I had,
Win-win.
I had a night on the beers and came home to thanks so much for that. No, you're welcome.
Good work, Tim.
Yeah, fair play.
Well, the other thing that's got me feeling festive is I've started watching World's Strongest Man.
Is that started?
festive.
It started. So, well, it's the... I've seen the first 2 episodes. First one was the British qualifying. Second one was like European qualifying. Although there was a few kind of non-European.
Is it James Richardson again? That's got the gig of my dreams.
Yes, yes. With Danny Wallace, and they've got another guy whose name escapes me.
Used to be on Blue Peter.
Yes,
with the
I think it is
spiky hair.
Yeah, he actually used to train at Virgin Active in Salford Keys.
Did he?
Yeah.
Who's the most famous person that you've seen in the gym?
In the gym.
Did you not used to be at Total Fitness near Wilmslow?
Yeah,
There was a few
was
guys there.
I remember seeing Robbie Savage
That's a good one.
in there.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing. Peter Stringer at the
That's not a bad one.
Pure Gym. The Pure Gym at Exchange Key, because as I've mentioned on the podcast before, the Sale Sharks pre-season training wasn't hard enough for him, so he went to do extras.
Standard. I've seen Lancashire training at David Lloyd.
Lancaster.
No, Lancashire.
Oh, Lancashire Rugby. Oh,
No.
Cricket.
Lancashire Cricket.
Oh, right, nice.
Yeah. I don't know if Flintoff was there.
Oh, God, so going back a few years then.
Yeah, about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Jimmy Anderson, presumably.
Jimmy Anderson he's 40. He looks good for 40.
He does.
He does.
He looks
still
very
plays
good.
well. Very well.
He does. Still
ridiculous,
plays all right.
Yeah. And someone I saw the other day, rugby related this one, someone I saw getting turned away from Costco because the membership card wasn't scanning, and he was getting quite upset about it. Coney Eusthazen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's a brave man to stand in the way of him when he wants to go and get.
I like him. I think he's very, very cool.
Bulk buy stuff. Yeah, he seems a nice guy.
I was down strolling through the streets of Soho not long ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, and I saw a genuine. I think he's a Hollywood A-lister, British.
Okay. I'm just thinking. Soho a couple of weeks ago, Hollywood A-lister.
Something like Idris Elba.
No, maybe not quite. So similar vein though, but
Okay.
yeah.
So like Tom Hardy be too far.
Tom Holland.
Not Tom Holland.
Tom Holland,
Neither of the Tom Hollands.
Oh, not the historian, no?
Not the historian.
Not Spider-Man or the historian.
Although I am going to see Tom Holland, the historian.
I'm going to do that
in April.
What about Tom Hardy?
Not Tom
Just
Hardy.
Tom Hardy?
Not Tom
did you?
Hardy.
Hiddleston, or whatever his name is?
No, not Hiddleston.
There are non-Tom related actors.
Oh, God, yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Not Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, hang on. The biggest actor that these shores have seen for a long time. Lawrence Fox.
Not Loza Fox.
Not Loza.
It was Damien Lewis.
Oh, good spot.
And he's wearing...
go on.
He's wearing an amazing green leather jacket that looked fantastic, and a hat, and I could tell it was him because of his kind of dimply smile, creased smile.
Yeah, the little creased cheek around the cheeks. Yes, you're right. He's got. I stood next to him at Latitude Festival watching Ben Folds.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yes.
I've had no interactions with him.
No, you're missing out.
He plays rugby, didn't he? He was like a rugby fan, or I swear Damien Lewis. I'm going to look that up. I'm sure Damien Lewis has some connection to rugby.
Well, presumably, if he does, he'll be listening to the podcast. So
obviously,
he'll just get in touch with us.
Yeah, EggChasers.
Sounds like he's pretty close to you two. So,
yeah.
So what are we doing today, boys? We're doing State of the Union.
Yeah. So Phil's got a quiz.
Yes.
And we're just going to take stock of rugby in general.
Why don't we do
at the end of the year
the international game, a quiz, and then the domestic game?
Okay.
That sounds good. Yeah,
because otherwise we're going to start with a fun quiz and then 90 minutes of misery.
Rant.
But let's have a bit of misery, a bit of fun, and then a bit more misery.
Well, you say misery if we're going to talk about the international game, but the international game is not bad. I think it's certainly in a better place than it was if we talk about the World Cup 8 years ago, 7 years ago, where we are now.
It's very difficult, isn't it, to deconflict the unions and how they manage their domestic game.
Yeah.
Because the unions, remember, are not just the people that run your league, but they're also the employers of your national team.
Yeah.
So I guess if you partition those two things, you can see one thing is doing okay and the other thing is doing absolutely horrendously.
Well, yeah, let's talk. If we talk about the international game as in international competition, from one of the things that I would look at is going into a World Cup next year, how many teams have a legitimate chance of winning the tournament? And if you think back to 2015, it's easy to say with hindsight, but there's only really one team that had a chance of winning that. France weren't very good. Ireland weren't very good. England, everyone had a lot of hopes for. They were terrible. Mm-hmm. Wales were pretty average. Australia were average. South Africa got beat by Japan. It was the oldest and ultimately the worst South African team we've seen. Argentina weren't up to much. There was no one. Scotland weren't up to much. There was no one really, other than New Zealand, who could have won that tournament. And we go in now, and I think you've got at least 5 teams, probably more, who have a genuine, serious competitive chance of winning.
Let me just see if we can sort of unpack that or look at it a different way. If I removed New Zealand from that equation, would you then say all those teams were rubbish still? Or would we be in a situation like we are today and we say, actually, all those teams were brilliant, it was the most competitive World Cup we would like to see. Were New Zealand just so much better than everybody else, it made everyone look, well, pedestrian?
It's definitely true that New Zealand were far better than everyone else. Far better than everyone else. But look at South Africa, they were nowhere near as good as their powers. England were nowhere near as good as the sum of their parts.
Nope.
France team was, frankly, a mess. They'd not recovered from the absolute farce that was 2011 that actually saw them get to a World Cup final in spite of the farce, not because of the management that led to the farce. There
is an element, isn't there, of looking at these teams and thinking you're just not competent, you're not well run.
Yeah. It wasn't that they were all just not as good as New Zealand, but they were efficient, they were competent, they were just not very good. They were all in a kind of state of flux.
Which, again, just to briefly jump to an England perspective, that's why an appointment of Steve Borthwick, I think one thing he will do is get a coherent, solid plan, direction, vision that everyone can buy into for the next 9 months.
Well, I don't know if you want to talk about Steve Borthwick in this podcast because it's a bit more generic.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to do it next podcast.
I'll just leave that little bookmark there. But to the broader point, you're absolutely right. Going into 2023, as things stand now, before the Six Nations and off the back of the autumn internationals, it's wide open. I think France are a cut above, but not so far out ahead that you couldn't see any other of those nations winning a World Cup.
And I'd probably argue, I know France won the Six Nations, but I would probably argue that Ireland were the best performing overall team in 2022. Now, 2022 is not 2023, and we've seen this before from Ireland in 2018. They won all of the accolades. Johnny Sexton got Player of the Year, they got Team of the Year, they won the Six Nations, they won everything, and then completely imploded in the World Cup. So we could see that again. But Ireland, for me, are a quality side.
They're a good side.
Even better than France.
They're a good side. They do feel like they've peaked. I hate to say it. Those wins, particularly the win against New Zealand, in New Zealand, felt to me like...
two wins against New Zealand in New Zealand.
Felt to me like the peak of their powers.
Although, when you look back to 2002, those victories a year out from a World Cup, they were in the Southern Hemisphere, in the same summer, England beat... No, in the Autumn International, The Autumn Internationals 1 year before a World Cup, just like Ireland, England beat Australia, New Zealand and South Africa.
They did.
And all the players that won that World Cup say that was a moment when the stars lined up. And
but we have seen this before from Ireland.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you think they've peaked, because if you knew when the market was going to peak or bottom, you'd make a lot of money.
Yep.
You only can do it with hindsight, retrospectively.
Yeah, but you look at France, and I don't think they've had their best performance yet. They've had some great performances, some great moments, but they're still building. I'm not even sure they know exactly who their best 15 is yet. And that's amazing, because they've got such strength, they've got such talent. When that finally starts coming together, I mean, some will say it is already a comprehensive and functioning unit, and it is, but I think it's got many more phases to go. And when it does, we're looking at one hell of a team. One hell of a team. I don't think Ireland have that.
I think Ireland are right up there.
Do you think there are players come into Ireland who would vastly improve it? Or change it?
Robbie Henshaw's not been there.
Henshaw, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think they've got the best of Balakoon.
They haven't, actually.
I think maybe not players coming in, but who would come into France to vastly improve it? I think
they've got an ocean of players that could come in. I mean, we've not seen... I always struggle with his name. Wilhelmsey.
He's been out injured.
He's coming back. He's one of the biggest men on the planet. You've got a range of fly halves. I mean, if you look,
we've seen a lot of France with Willemse in over the years, haven't we?
But that could be a weakness. The Ireland, because they're a leaner player pool and fewer teams and a more settled squad, that could be an advantage. Because,
it can be,
because we've seen this with England.
Yes, we have.
When there's not a lot to choose between certain individuals, and it might just be the overall chemistry that makes a difference. Jalabert v Untamak could actually confuse matters, whereas Ireland, they've got all their eggs in the Sexton basket.
I think the thing I'd say is when you've got a huge player pool and it's managed correctly, unlike England's, you are able to add one or two pieces as you come into a World Cup. So, Milner Scudder for
New Zealand in 2015.
We won. I can't think off the top of my head who it would be for England, but there were lads coming in into that team who were adding to it all the time. Now, a classic example for me would be the French hooker situation. They've got 4 or 5 great hookers. They could easily promote one, and that would make a huge difference. They've got loads of fly halves. Well, one could come and make a difference.
You say make a hooker making a difference, but they've got 2 of the best hookers on the planet doing Marchand and Malvaca, and they do fantastic roles. So I don't think they've got anyone who can, that I'm aware of, that would make a difference above those 2.
I have forgotten his name now. The boy at La Rochelle is superb.
Bogarrit.
Yeah, superb.
He is superb.
He
made a fantastic break against Ulster. God, it was horrible watching that because you're just accelerating away from everyone.
Yeah. There's just pieces that they can rely on, which can make a difference. Like with England, I think they just mismanaged their depth. New Zealand did a great job with it when they were good. England did a better job with it under Clive Woodward. I think France could do the same thing, and that to me is the difference.
So, the overall though, if we talk about the competitive level of the game, I think that's in rude health, because you've got lots of teams who can beat each other on any given day, and therefore it makes a competitive World Cup. Yeah,
it's good to see more Tier 1 and Tier 2 nations having head-to-heads, and the elevation of that's great. I think it's really good. I think you can also point to the changes they've had on qualification by residency to 5 years. I think that's been a really good move. I'm glad about that.
And also the qualification to a country of your birth or your parents' birth.
100%.
There is a few, I guess, warning signs for me. Number one would be the primacy of the World Cup. I think it's incredibly unhealthy that we have 4-year cycles. And one of the things that Borthwick said, and I really love it, is every game matters now. Now, I think we need to come to a more realistic position with the international teams that every game does matter. It is important that you win the Six Nations. It's not okay if you throw it away because you're building. It's not okay if you don't win all of your ultimate internationals because of some reason. So I'm not in favour of rejigging it so we have a World Cup every 2 years, or a World Cup plus then some other multinational tournament. But if we can make the international nations take it more seriously year to year rather than on a 4-year cycle, I think that would be good. And the other warning sign to me is the continual pressure on the international game to generate money. Because if Twickenham's not full, or if the Millennium Stadium's not full, in fact, all of the internationals in the Six Nations, maybe with the exception of France, if they don't play or something happens to them, everything falls to pieces. That is the biggest issue.
Yeah. You're quite right on the precarious finances, and that's undoubtedly something we're going to talk about when we get to the domestic game. And that's one that I don't know what the answer is. Well, I like to think that having the more coherent overall season and a global season, it is not going to be a silver bullet, but it might just help things. It help the narratives that Tim, you often rightly talk about, getting the narratives to engage people. It makes it easier to understand and follow through, but I don't know how you solve that problem, because it's like one of the points you made ages ago, Tim, which I think is a really, really valuable one, is if you're talking about a World Cup or a rugby that was on television in the 90s or the 80s or even the early 2000s, you're talking about like 5-6 channels in the UK, and you had the eyeballs on it. Now there is infinite options for you, is infinite entertainment at every single angle for you to look at, and it's what is going to capture people's attention.
Well, to that, quite often, and this is partly a mistake I think people make, is the obsession is with how do we get more of those eyeballs that aren't watching to watch. First and foremost, you need to look after, care, and really love the people that are already invested and giving you their eyeballs.
That is a very good point.
And I think that there's, because some of the people that in the 90s or 80s or whatever who would watch the Six Nations because there was only 4 or 5 channels or whatever it is, and it would be on. you're never going to get a massive chunk of those people who now have infinite choice. You will never ever get, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But what concerns me is, yes, definitely try and reach out to the people that could be brought into the fold. But there's a lot of people who pay their money via subscriptions to TV, actually go to grounds, pay for kits, take their kids along, support local grassroots rugby clubs who feel like the people administering the game don't care about them.
Yeah.
And seem to care about this nebulous other group of people. So it must be possible to do both things at the same time.
Yes, you'd think so.
And to that end, we can get onto in a little bit some of the suggested law changes. But in terms of World Rugby's law changes for 2023, there's a handful that World Rugby are bringing in from January the 1st.
That didn't seem, when I flicked through them, it didn't seem to be anything concerning. Just enforcing
basically
60 and
it could be summarised as let the boys play.
Yeah, well, enforcing 60 and 90 seconds, and there was
speed up the lineouts.
Yeah, speed up lineouts and scrums. None of that seems controversial to me.
So the refs, as we got from a friend of the pod who's a referee on one of our WhatsApp groups, the referees have already been told the sort of things that you stop from happening is the slow ambled walk to a line out, the little
how do they stop it?
The little huddle to a line out, free kick.
Yeah,
who huddles in a line out?
Well, you can have sometimes teams have little huddles before and then break and stand in line out. Some walk slowly up. Some they send the loose head to go and have a chat with the hooker to tell him the move and then go
set
back.
up and then send the.
I can't imagine having a team so disorganised that we'd need to huddle before we went into line out.
You must play against teams as disorganised as that.
I find it abhorrent. I find it offensive.
Well, World Rugby are clamping down on it.
But if they're huddling and we're set up, who's the advantage for?
Well, then there's
we're waiting for them. It's always an advantage to get in the line out first so you can see what they're doing.
But then it won't have any impact.
Well, look.
So it's
in fact, no, it will have an impact. In fact, if anything, if they want to slow it down, they're more than welcome to slow their ball down.
And they're getting rid of those ridiculous 22-minute or 20-minute water break thing in the middle of each half.
Yeah, that's not needed in the Northern Hemisphere.
It's not needed full stop. Unless there's like an unusual weather.
Was it not brought in for Japan?
I could understand.
That's what I thought it was.
Because it was like when we were hydrating with a few lemon strong zeros.
Well, hydrating, risking our lives
in Tokyo, as an example. It's like 35, 36 degrees and 90% humidity. Yeah. It was crazily hot to be playing 90 minutes of rugby or 80 minutes of rugby.
But Twickenham in November,
you do not need it. No, you do not need it at all.
And you just give big men even more chance to rest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The change I'd like to see is interchanges. I want to see players come on, come off. I want to see coaches using their tactical acumen for when they want to deploy their scarce resources. I want to see all of that stuff.
The interchanges is an interesting one because the number of people I've seen against interchanges, actually against tactical substitutions for the purpose of reducing injury, which you need to know that the difference between a fresh man and a depleted man is the primary cause of injury. Otherwise, you could be increasing, like making people play for 80 minutes could actually increase the risk of injury.
Look, we're always going to have injuries. I'm starting to get more and more militant on this now, which is let's stop with the safety nonsense. Player welfare isn't the be-all or end-all. They might say it is, but it's not. Otherwise, we wouldn't play. Simple as that. You don't play a game like this because your first thing on your mind is your health. You play a game like this for many other reasons. So we need to park that and say it is necessarily going to be risky. That's the interchange.
That's the kind of thing. Like some people will fall on a spectrum of agreeing or disagreeing with you, but I think there will be a lot of people, and the group of people I was talking about that are invested in the game, have been brought up on the game,
who know the game, who play the game,
who know the game, who play the game, who promote the game, who support the game. They're the people that I think would be somewhere on towards the spectrum of agreeing with that very point, and that's the very point that I think is the disconnect.
So I think one of the major battlegrounds in rugby, like the clandestine undercover fight, which is there to be had, or the people that control so much of rugby's opinion, certain journalists, certain writers, and you can see this with the phrase "game's gone soft brigade." So people are now running scared because they don't want to be ridiculed by the term "game's gone soft brigade," and it is a cover for people to do whatever they want. And I think I will save this for later when we talk about the grassroots game, because it's certainly more applicable to that.
All right.
But it just allows people to get away with whatever they want in the game. Law changes for our health, changes for our safety, none of which I'm interested in. Absolutely none. So that is the fight in rugby now. And I think if we lose that fight, basically the game's over.
Well, why don't we come back to that one then? And unless there's anything more on the international game.
Not for me,
right.
yeah.
Not overly.
Phil's got a bit of paper and a pen and a phone handy.
Yes. So have you two got something?
This is the same quiz you showed me last night. Is that right?
Jay.
Exactly.
So yeah, put your phones in airplane mode and get your text up. So it's going to be, you're going to be writing it down. Get notes up.
Okay, notes.
So there's only 5 questions, but there are one.
I hope it's not like who scored the most tries. I hate those questions.
There is one
highest point scorers.
There's one try scorer question. But it's got to be.
Should we do airplane mode, Jay? Should we? Come on.
Yeah, I may as well, because I'm only distracted by people texting me.
Show me. Right. Okay, good.
There we go. Okay. Question number 1. So 5 questions, but 12 points available. But the first question only has 1 point available, and that is: New Zealand have only failed to make the Rugby World Cup semi-finals once.
Ooh.
When was it?
Interesting. Okay. Semi-finals.
They've made at least the semi-finals in every year apart from one.
Okay.
Hang on. Right.
It's either that one or that one. Okay. I'll decide on which one of those two it is in a bit. Okay, cool.
Question number 2. 1 point available. How many times have Gloucester finished top of the Premiership table at the end of the regular season?
I know this.
Okay. Should we have a guess at the years?
I'll tell you what, we'll do the years as a tiebreaker just in case we need it.
Okay. Easy.
Question number 3.
Hang on, that's not the answer. Jesus. Okay.
Question number 3. Scoring 49 tries, this is your try scorer one, JB. Scoring 49 tries in 62 tests from 2000 to 2007, who is the all-time top try scorer for New Zealand?
49 tries.
In 62 tests between 2000 and 2007.
Too easy, that.
Too easy. Interesting.
Sure that's the one you want to ask?
You hate top try scorer questions.
Okay, well, if that's the one you want to ask, that's on you.
You got something down, Tim? JB got that one easily.
I've got something down, but I'm not confident at all.
You shouldn't be.
Question number 4. What international team did Dave Rennie get 1 cap for?
Dave Rennie, you say?
Dave Rennie.
Say again?
Which international team did Dave Rennie... He got 1 international cap.
You only got the one. It's easy. Let's remember this.
I hope you're not bluffing.
That's it.
JB loves a bluff.
Do I?
Well, it seems like it's
so obvious when you think about it.
Can't be that obvious.
It's really obvious.
And the final question. You got something down? Everyone's got something down for question number 4. Final question. 8 points available.
Okay.
There are 8 countries, not representative sides like the Lions or the World 15, who have beaten New Zealand.
Okay.
Who are they?
8 of them, you say?
8 countries.
8 representative sides.
8 countries, not so not.
Oh, okay.
They're countries, not representative sides like the Lions.
Got you.
Because you could add the Lions and the World 15 to this list, but we wouldn't count those. So 8 countries.
There's two that I can't. There's 2 that obviously not sure on. Oh, they must have it. So, oh, right, yeah, they must have. It's just...
The last one's really difficult.
The last one is very difficult. There's 7 quite easy points available for this one.
7 easy points?
Well, there's 8. So 7 easy points and 1 difficult point.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2.
I don't know where you're getting 7 from. Okay. So I've got a list of people who haven't beaten them.
Why?
I cannot think who number 8 can be.
Number 8 is tricky.
It's going to be someone weird. Okay.
I don't know where to start.
Right, well, let's get all the obvious ones done, shall we?
So should we do... Have you got 8 written down?
Yeah.
Let me just... Okay, I just might as well go with... No, because they haven't beaten them, so I won't do that one.
Yeah, there's a few teams you know have never beaten them.
Fine, I'll just go with that.
Okay. Question number 1.
Okay.
What year did New Zealand fail to make the semi-finals?
I'm going to say 2001.
2001?
Well, it wasn't a World Cup in 2001.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2000. Whenever England won it.
2003.
That's the one.
Well, I've put 99 or 07 down. I think 07 was when Shabal and Co. beat New Zealand in the quarterfinal at Cardiff,
done.
so I'm going for 07.
07 is correct.
Well done.
1 point.
How's that game? Brilliant.
So 1 point to Tim. Question number 2. How many times have Gloucester finished top of the regular season Premiership table?
I did think about saying once, but I said twice.
I think it's once. And I think it's about 2007-ish.
Well, my 2 guesses were 2005, 2009, so we're in the same ballpark.
So they did finish top in 2007.
Get in.
They didn't finish top in 2005. They didn't finish top in 2009. However, they did finish top in 2008.
Did they?
And 2003.
They've done it 3 times.
3 times.
Is it all under Dean Ryan?
Don't know.
I think it's all under Dean Ryan.
Iron Lion Dean Ryan.
Yeah.
Well.
3 times.
3 times.
No points then. Okay.
0 points.
Question number 3.
Yeah.
JB, that you were very confident.
I am actually quite confident on this one.
So
go on, Tim. You give me.
Yeah.
Well,
I've got 2. So I'll tell you the one I thought it might be. But now I'm going to say it's
I'm going
not.
to put my poker face on.
Okay.
It's not Doug Howlett.
Okay.
That's one. I think it's going to be Tana Umaga, but then I think I've not got enough caps for him. No, I'm going to go for Doug Howlett. Doug Howlett.
I was thinking of the options I had was Sivivatu, Rokothoko, but I've gone Doug Howlett.
Doug Howlett.
Doug
I
Howlett
think it's
is
Doug.
correct.
Yes.
God.
Very good.
I think someone mentioned it in one of the autumn international games.
I just know. So, I've never rated Doug Howlett, and I know he's got a ridiculous amount of tries and not that many caps. And I thought, Tanner probably's got more caps than that, and he played 13 as well.
Yeah. I bet he's not.
Oh, thank God. Got himself out a hole there. That was a real.
But he wasn't part of any of the World Cup winning teams, was he? He was.
No.
He was in the
2000 to 2007.
Yeah.
Dave Rennie.
Dave Rennie.
I
just guessed New Zealand, but I haven't got a clue.
I don't know why. I think it's Japan.
It wasn't New Zealand.
No, of course not.
It also wasn't Japan. It was the Cook Islands.
Well, there we go.
Oh, wow. I love it.
Of course. Can you not remember his debut?
How can I forget?
Right. The 8 countries. So, do you want to do...
Well, let's do who it's not.
Okay.
So it's not Italy.
Italy have
It's
never
not
beaten
Italy.
them.
It's not Scotland.
It's not Wales.
No, I've got Wales down.
I don't think Wales.
No, Wales have never won in New Zealand, but they must have. Like with the Gareth
don't
Edwards,
think they have.
with the Gareth Edwards and JPR team, they must have beaten them.
I don't think they have.
Wales have beaten, but not
Have they?
since the 70s.
Damn it.
But they have beaten them.
That would be the one which I'm missing out then.
No, because what? Not well. So the 7 I've got. So you'll have the other 6 then. So I've got England, South Africa,
Yep.
New Zealand, Australia, Argentina.
Wait, New Zealand? New Zealand can't beat New Zealand.
Sorry.
You only got
what's
7
going on here?
teams down.
Teams that beat. So I've got
Category
I've
error.
only got 6 written down. Damn it!
Oh my God.
So I've got England, South Africa, Australia, Argentina, Ireland, and Wales. Who am I
So
missing
you've
there?
missed France.
Oh my goodness!
So Tim has got
How did
6
I not?
points.
Oh man!
JB, right, give me yours, because you've not got Wales.
So I've not got Wales.
So you will have France.
You'll have France.
So you'll have the other 6. You'll
Well,
have England, South Africa, France, Australia, Argentina, and Ireland.
Yes, I have. But then there's another one, right? Now, I think this other team, it's going to be someone like Germany or USA. I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's Fiji, Tonga, or Samoa, is it?
You've got to guess.
No, because
You've gotta guess.
I'm not going to change my guess. So I've gone. Do you know the other one who I thought it could be as well is Sri Lanka. But I'm going to go with USA.
Okay, there's a wild card.
I feel like
So I can only score 6 on this, and JB's got 6.
So you didn't, but you've not gone for a. So you only went for 7.
I wrote down New Zealand without thinking, and
so have another guess.
So
I'll give you another guess.
Okay.
For the New Zealand one.
because
All right.
Tim, you're winning at the moment.
Yeah.
By 1 point.
Who else has played rugby? Like it's not going to. No,
It's not Georgia.
We'd know about it if it was Georgia or Romania or.
I feel like we'd know about it if it's USA as well. Damn it.
So it's not going to be Canada or. Who else plays rugby?
Canada could be a good. Well,
Who else plays rugby?
Didn't
I
Spain-
can't even think of another country that plays rugby.
didn't Spain play before Franco or something? I'm sure that Lions have played Sri Lanka, so that'd be. Could it be someone like Zimbabwe?
Yeah, Zimbabwe. There could be Zimbabwe. They were a big team in the 80s.
Maybe Zimbabwe.
I'm not. Yeah, Zimbabwe. I don't know. Surely not.
So, JB, you went for USA.
I did.
It's not USA, which means you total 7 points.
Disaster.
Tim is already on 8 points. But Tim, your guess was
Zimbabwe.
in 1949.
What?
Go on.
Well, JB got this really. But anyway.
In a test in capital Harare.
Oh wow.
Rhodesia.
Rhodesia.
Former
Wow, that's awesome.
former
Damn it,
colonial
that's a
name for
great
Zimbabwe.
question. That's a great question.
Beat the All Blacks.
That's a great question.
Oh,
So
damn it.
was that? So
It was a tour of South Africa.
Okay.
1949 it was. New Zealand were touring South Africa and played a game against. I guess it's more like playing when they toured England. New Zealand toured England in the 70s, I think it was, or 80s, and they were beaten by the North of England, as an example, at Otley. I think.
Well, there was an
Rhodesia.
anniversary of that recently, wasn't there, or something?
Yeah, I think there was. Rhodesia was treated as almost more like a provincial game.
Oh, I
rather
won't
than
take the New
a
Zealand
proper
point.
game. But you don't need it.
I don't
need
need
it.
it because I won by a point anyway.
Yes.
Good quiz, that. Good quiz. What
There we
was the
go.
point that won it in the end? I can't
It was
remember.
the first question.
It was the World Cup.
The World Cup 2007, the game that JB was at. Lost it for him.
Wow. So, just before we
Too
go,
many strong zeros that day as well.
Yeah, far too many. So before we go on, I can't stand. I'm just watching a video on my phone as I turned it back on. I can't stand gory videos. You know, like these horrible videos, like go around. Not necessarily social media. They used to be on social media, but now they go on like WhatsApp or Telegram channels.
Oh,
You're like just horrible stuff.
I hate those.
The only exception that I have is for when trainers of lions and tigers get it wrong. That's the only exception that I have.
Like Scott Baldwin.
I can't get enough of it. They deserve everything that they get. And I don't mean like just a civilian trying to pet it.
Yeah,
I mean like someone bullying a tiger. I'm so glad they get their heads ripped off. Calm it.
Oh dear.
I heard a great phrase just on non-rugby stuff before we go back into the domestic game. A really good phrase for next week, or this week as you're listening right now, this coming week. I heard someone refer to it as the Gooch Week, which is perfect. It's absolutely spot on.
Oh dear. It's happened a little bit this week. I've had a lot of things to do, but I kind of lose my purpose in life during this week. I'm normally like so focused on, right, I've got to do A, then B, then C, and then I never get time for D, E, F. Whereas this week I've done A, B, C, D, E, and F all by mid-morning, and then it's like, well,
Time for a nap.
yeah. Or do I just start drinking?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Well, that's how UK farmers and stuff, or people in pre-industrial revolution. That's how they worked the land. That was kind of the British way. You get up, you do your work, and then you just chill out all day.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's, some people think, like, culture-wise, that has actually gone through. Like, part of the reason why traditionally certain pockets of Asian communities are so hardworking is because paddy fields, for example, had like minute detail, intricate detail needed constant attention and lots of work.
Yeah, there's the thing about the rice fields.
It's Malcolm Gladwell.
It might
wasn't
be Malcolm Gladwell,
in
but I think I've read it elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
Effectively, the more time you put into it, the more rice you can yield.
Yeah,
so there is a correlative benefit.
And the mathematics, the disposition for being very good at mathematics, they think may be culturally embedded from that, because actually you would have to be very aware of detail.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I think that is in Outliers as well.
It's safe to say I'm not. That I'm not descended from Asian stock then.
Whereas kind of farming in the UK and in Northern Europe is kind of just
do a bit of work,
elbow grease, then let it do it, then just sit back.
Wait.
Yeah.
There you go. So before we start this section,
has
anyone got anything positive to say
about domestic rugby?
Yeah, just the landscape that we find ourselves in.
France are doing well.
France are doing well, yeah.
I think
that's a good point. Yeah.
That's a great one. If there was a model for success in domestic rugby at the moment, from the top level and downward, it is France.
The model or a model?
It's because I think you've got to be careful with this. Like, look at Welsh rugby loosely tried to copy the New Zealand model.
Correct.
You can't. The map is not the territory. You can't just lift off what's worked before.
Yeah, you're right, and it
elsewhere.
goes to something that JB's talked about a lot, where you've said that you need to give a proposition that fits the people that are there. And I think Ireland are doing that as well. Ireland are operating at a really high level, at the top level. Their provinces are doing well, and they've got room for growth, because one of the Irish school system is fantastic, and that's part of the reason that Leinster are so good, is because there's so many high quality people coming through the school system, teams like Blackrock and all the rest of it. But
with Mr. McGinty as the headmaster,
nailing it.
Headmaster McGinty sorting that out. But they are seeing the opportunity for growth by getting out into the communities and tapping into the talent that isn't through the public school system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they think it can get even better.
Tell you what, that's where England lets itself down. You know, I hardly know anyone who, and I've met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lads who play rugby at lower levels. Unless you went to a really good school early on and you get picked up by or somebody early on, there's just no real progress. And also, same for North Wales too. It's different now because of RGC. But unless you were really, really something special, no, actually, even if you're something really special, you probably wouldn't get picked up. You'd be invited on a trial, drive 5 hours. You might not have a great game, then you'd be bussed back up to Colwyn Bay and carry on playing.
And obviously, there are people that come outside of that school system, but bearing in mind the proportion of people in private schools in the UK is maybe 5%.
Yeah. So
whereas probably at least 50% of professional players will come through that system.
Yeah, it is a bit more tricky than that, I think, because a lot of kids go through the private school system, but a lot of kids that go through the private school system are not private school kids. So if you've shown real promise,
Carl Ferns.
Correct, yeah. Carl Ferns is not a private school kid in any way, shape or form. From a
working class family in Liverpool, good rugby player, went to Sedbergh.
Absolutely dominated the place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a classic example. So, sometimes when they say, we see a lot of idiots talk about the private school system, I think I generally agree with their very broad point that too many kids go through private school. No, I agree with the point that if you're not in the private school system, it's very difficult for you. But I don't agree with it in terms of it's just a class thing, because the private schools do a very good job of actually getting lads in from different classes. But even if they did exclusively that, there is simply not enough room in those top private schools to facilitate all of the talent that England has. Yeah. And that's the difference.
And if that is a sliding doors moment, that you're the one that gets picked or doesn't get picked, and through no other fault of your own, all else being equal, that has a massive bearing on whether you become a professional rugby player or not.
Yeah.
Then it's not just that it's unfair on that kid or lucky for that. That's not the point. It's just you're missing out on a whole lot of talent.
Yeah,
really are.
The amount of talent that could be funneled through to top level rugby, because of those kids, even still the kids that make it to the first team of the big private schools, 95% of them are not going to make it.
Yeah.
Or more than that.
And you will get a Bevan Rod occasionally, who is just a great prop out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
But props and second rows and whatnot, you've got to punt everywhere for them. I'm surprised that there is not more attention paid to this, because there are some big blokes out there. And if they had just a little bit of extra attention and extra training, they could be bloody good rugby players. Now, they're not all going to the Premiership. There's a lot of guys that
NFL do that talent ID, because in certain positions, just you cannot be a great... you cannot be a tight end unless you're 6'5" minimum.
Yeah,
it's like second row.
You just can't. Exactly.
You are not there. You could count on one hand the number of people who've played international second row under 6'5" in the last 20 years. Sebastian Chabal being one of them, but he only played there because he was a fantastic number 8.
Cameron Waukee.
He's surely 6'5".
I think.
No, he's not big, but he's just...
He's not. He won't be under.
Line
He won't be under 6'5". But he's got the advantage of he's probably got a wingspan of someone who's about 6'9".
He's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing. Anyway, yeah. So back to second rows. I've got 2 examples of lads in Wales, both of which didn't really become that good until their late 20s. One of them's just been picked up now, and I've seen this lad play for years, and I think if only someone had picked him up and worked with him from the age of, say, 20, I'm sure he'd be a pro.
Well, who was I can't remember who the guy that was the Aussie guy that was in charge of London Irish for a bit. Because there was Glenn Delaney went there, and anyway, Brian Smith.
Not Tom Coventry. Brian Smith.
So that's one of the things Brian Smith said to my brother. It's like, man, how did you not get found earlier?
Exactly.
Because he made his Premiership debut age 28.
Did he?
Yeah.
And
28.
And there'll be lots of people.
Did he not debut for Bath earlier than that?
He didn't play first team for Bath. He was
Premiership.
He was on the bench. Was he on the bench for the first team? Anyway, it was when Borthwick and Grewcock were the second rows there. And anyway, no, so he didn't get that, but he was in the Championship. He got one loan to London Irish, so maybe it was 27. Anyway, but he didn't get a full-time contract with London Irish till he was 28. And he was player of the season there that year. And that's what Brian Smith said. It's like, how have you just popped up on the radar now?
Incredible, isn't
it?
But
the number of players who will be maybe not quite as talented as Nick, but close to the ability of Nick, who just come 21, they'll get an offer to do full-time work or part-time rugby, full-time work, or whatever the combination is, and the rugby they'll just let it go. They won't train as hard, they won't play, they'll play at a lower level, or just give up entirely.
But he came through a comprehensive school system, played local club for Newbury, and it was only by chance because Bath under-21s played Newbury, and he was playing on the other team, and it was just one person spotted. Oh, look at the size and shape of that lad.
Yeah,
mine.
And he's got an engine on him.
Fancy coming and training at Bath, but no, he would have been like many other people, just completely.
Yeah.
But he hadn't had the 5 years of. He sort of had to play catch up, which is why he came through later. Because that 5 years of conditioning that all the other lads would have got.
It's a funny game, rugby, right? So, yes, 5 years strength and conditioning is very important. I think 5 years of learning to talk rugby chat is just as important. I'm not being funny. I'm not a very good rugby player. Certainly not compared to someone in the Championship, or let alone the Premiership. But I'm pretty sure if you put me in a meeting, I could bluff it. I'm pretty sure. Like if you just put like the kit on me and like a hoodie, I'm sure I could bluff it for a good day or so.
Definitely.
Yeah, just hanging around like the line-out section, or easy.
You can talk the talk.
Oh.
Who's that? That was at number 8. He was at Leicester Tigers, and then he didn't really. I don't think he played for the first team at Leicester, but he went to Nottingham where he played most of his rugby. Dan Montague. He got the nickname Stash for his whole rugby career because he turned up.
That name. Why do I know that name?
He was number 8 at Nottingham. Anyway, he played. He turned up for his first day's training at Leicester wearing, like, they were all in their proper Leicester stash. He turned up in like old school shorts,
cardboard shorts,
a real massive oversized, just generic rugby shirt and crap socks, and he had the nickname Stash his whole career.
Love it. Yeah, if someone comes on Talk H and they've got the right shorts on and they talk rugby, you're guaranteed to go straight to the first team, no questions asked. I was a good player. How do we know?
Now, we've obviously spent a bit of time there talking about the abundance of talent that there is but is not getting utilised. That is a problem. there are bigger problems than
There
that.
are much bigger problems.
Yeah. So
where JB, you love ranting about these problems. So where do you want to start on the other problems?
Well, I'd say this. I mean, it's difficult to know really what state the grassroots game is in, because I would say the standard has dropped, but simultaneously we're still getting at first team level. Most weeks we've got games.
But that's if you go back 10, 15 years to say most first team games are going ahead. That's a pretty low bar. Like you wouldn't be saying that 15 years ago, would you?
I'm trying to put it in context, because we are in Didsbury. If you just went to Didsbury, you'd think it was the most popular game on the planet.
Yeah.
We've got 50 training every week.
Yeah.
It's an amazing club. We're doing really, really good things. But I appreciate that isn't everybody. So if I look at the league that we play in, I think it's a really good league. I really like the teams in the Northwest that play in our league. They've all got some history. They all play good rugby. So from my point of view, it's definitely a higher standard than last year. But last year and this year combined, I do not think are the standard which I believe level 7 should be at. Level 6 certainly around here is nowhere near the standard level
it once was.
Yeah. Level 6 has gone down drastically. I'm certain of that. And then when you go up, so as you go up the table, I think there's a problem of where teams stop paying money and where teams are just meant to be good but amateur. So if you come down that level, they are okay. We're okay. LSH seems to be doing. That's Liverpool St Helens. Sorry, they seem to be doing okay. All the
they
teams
don't pay.
We've never paid. So it's not really an issue. You jump up a bit, and all the lads that would have played at, say, Vale of Loon or Wilmslow are really suffering. Broughton Park, Altrincham Kersal, where they sometimes would pay, they sometimes wouldn't pay, but there was enough players.
They might do expenses, or they might pay a few players, but
all those players have gone. They've all gone. They've either gone up or they've just quit the game.
Yeah.
And I think that is the area that is of most concern to me. Now,
If you're a Shark Tank fan or business junkie, check out the podcast Another Bite. Each week, Another Bite breaks down the biggest success stories and most disastrous failures to come out of Shark Tank. The hosts break down each company's pitch, analyze the deals that were or weren't made, and answer the million-dollar question, are they still a company? Whether you're an entrepreneur looking for tips or a Shark Tank fan that just wants to relive the drama, Another Bite's your deep dive into the world of Shark Tank. Just search for Another Bite in your favorite podcast app, like the one you're listening to right now.
second teams and third teams have not always played. It's nice if they do, and we often do. And then second team, that would be an area of concern for me. I've had loads of screenshots with home walkover, away walkover.
Yeah.
But anecdotally, it seems to be picking up around here. So I'm not as negative on the local scene as I am the overall sort of grassroots scene and the administration of it and that kind of thing.
Well, certainly on a smaller scale, I just talk from the thing that I see every Sunday is a lot of the teams that my son's side would play against over the years. A lot of those clubs don't run teams at that age group anymore. So, but what you've now got by under 15s is the clubs that are still existing. They've absorbed some of the numbers from like Manchester shut down, and they went to a few other clubs, Stockport and Trafford Metrovic and all the rest of it, and Heaton Moor. So they've all gone and bolstered the clubs that were there. So you now have actually a really, really good standard in a bunch of clubs at a certain level, and I think there's probably a little bit of that adjustment still to happen. There's probably a little bit of market forces need to come into play, and you hope that everyone can find their level and exist. But actually, it may well be that the ones that aren't doing as you talked about, providing the proposition that is required for the people that support that club, if they don't do it, then actually maybe see you later.
The way I look at clubs is they are sort of a basis for people to do. They're a blank canvas, right? And I think you see this all the time with the youth sections, which is you'll have a youth section, an age group which is good, age group which is bad, age group which is good. And the only difference is motivated parents. Now, you can have motivated parents in every single position, but then when those kids go past, you're not going to stay with the Broughton Park under 15s for a few years, are you? You're going to go under 16s and 17s.
Nothing will make me happier. We're talking about this. A bunch of those lads, when they get to 18, they'll go off and go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But it will fill me with so much pride if 3 2 or 3 of those guys
go and play first team.
are in the first team
Yeah,
on a Saturday afternoon.
Fantastic.
That's like job done.
But you're not staying as the under 15s coach. That is not going to be your job, right?
No.
Yeah.
So, that's why. So rugby clubs will provide you with the canvas, but it'll be the motivated parents, and I think that's why we see so many clubs which don't have an age group at a certain level, and then have a really good one at another level, so on and so forth. I had this conversation with an RFU bod, and they sort of score. They used to score your club on all the different teams it had, and this is I don't know why it was important to them, but they were coming to us and saying, "Hey, you need to have a youth team playing. You need to have this team playing." It's like, no, I don't. I don't need to have any of those things. I mean, the club should be, what the members of that particular section of the club make it. All that a rugby club does is provide you with the opportunity to build this thing. It shouldn't provide it for you.
So that's the kind of grassroots, or some of the grassroots.
Yeah, and if we touch on the money and then get to your so the money, obviously it's been a tumultuous year, and the big story there has been at the top end.
At the top end, yeah,
because you got 2 years of COVID with all the complications that brings and has brought for various different reasons. We don't need to go over that.
CVC chickens coming home to roost.
The CVC, finally. Yeah, CVC taking a big chunk of the media and commercial cash commercial revenue coming off, and we've already seen 2 clubs fold.
Yeah,
we've seen London Irish. We've seen Worcester and Wasps.
That'll probably be a relevant statement in a few months. Who knows?
In my opinion, we've said this on the podcast, we are likely to see at least one other, and the 2 most obvious for me are London Irish and Sale, because they don't own their own grounds. Their revenues and their player costs are almost exactly the same thing. They have very little option to grow their revenues. Sale, we saw a statement this week, actually, didn't we, on the ground, and trying to find...
from Sale? From Sale. I didn't see this.
Yeah. So they made a statement around them trying to buy the AJ Bell has effectively run its course. They're not going to find an agreement with Salford City Council, who own it. They're not going to be able to buy it. Therefore, they're looking at options to enhance the matchday experience and ultimately drive more revenue into their pockets, of which they won't even get all of it, because a proportion of it, I don't know how the revenue split works, but some of it will be going to the owner of the stadium.
Well, I mean, and that's why you own a stadium, to be fair,
Oh, yeah.
That's why you own a stadium.
They've tried, they've looked at other options which were non-viable for various reasons.
Salford City Council can they've got the leverage, because what are you going to do if we say no?
Sale don't have anywhere even close to enough money.
They did have one location, didn't they? One location which could have saved the club.
They had no locations.
There was one.
There was that one old person who lived in one of the flats on Pulteney Street by the Wreck, who held up Bath's planning application for years and years.
And
for Sale, it's Phil.
Yeah.
Blocking.
I have saved Sale literally hundreds of millions of pounds by...
That's so good of you.
By just highlighting to them the farce of, if you try and build on greenbelt land that is also an area of natural interest. And
interest? What's interesting about that?
And also, I don't make those rules, Jay. That's how it's designed.
I would throw every newt into a wood chipper if I could build that stadium.
And it's also Mersey floodplain. So not only does anything I say have totally relevance, say it's kind of. Have you ever heard the phrase that was used to describe the Trump family collusion with the Russians, alleged collusion with the Russians?
Go on.
As Watergate for stupid people. So the Sale's attempt at moving towards building a ground on Crossford Bridge was like construction for morons. Like, there was no way they had even 1/10 of the money they would have needed to build that stadium.
I bet Phil changes his mind pretty quickly if Sale comes in with the full amount of money to build.
Now, if Sale come with 200 plus million, then we could talk. But
there's a conversation to be had, yeah?
Yeah. But where is Sale going to get 200 million from?
They've got 200 million knocking.
Could they not?
They'll lose like 2 million.
Crowd,
they need minus 200 years of profits.
Don't you worry about it. Don't you worry about where the money comes from.
With the crowd they currently have, Hayward Road would work.
It would do. With the crowd they currently have.
I don't think they're... I mean, I say I don't think. I know for a fact they'd have to do some serious redevelopment on Hayward Road, and it'd be other planning.
No, but they could get all the people that they get in at the AJ Bell. They could get in at Hayward Road.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's true. It's pretty busy at Sale. I'm pretty sure it's busy. Let's just leave it at that.
They could do Hayward Road, but they can't do Hayward Road because it's not 10,000 seater.
Yeah, it'd take a lot of redevelopment.
Yeah.
They did some work on Hayward Road a few years ago. They did some new clubhouse facilities.
Yeah, it's really cool.
3 or 4.
When the Premiership started, that's where the Sky Sports cameras used to go to.
Yeah,
I remember it's really cool. Really cool. Jason Robinson had his debut there.
Yeah,
against London Irish.
Yeah. It would be. Now I would be keen to do that. Now there's some houses around that. Knock them down. They don't affect my house at all. So, exactly. I mean, it's not Mersey. It's not Mersey floodplain, and there's not a load of newts on there and parakeets.
So the Premiership's a mess of their own making. The CVC deal is an absolute nightmare. There was an article out, wasn't there, this week, and it said something which. It's one of those things that sounds really inflammatory when you say it out loud, and it's along the lines of CVC have taken out X amount of dividends when the league has lost X Y amount or whatever it is. And people are sharing this like it's big news. It's not big news.
That's what they signed up to.
If you find this offensive, or if you find this wrong, you don't understand the deal.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
It's just playing through the deal that everyone's signed up to.
There is nothing wrong with what CVC are doing. CVC made a great deal for them and their investors. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with what they are doing.
Yeah.
So when you say they've lost this, but dividends of that have come out, tough luck.
And people, and as you're sort of alluding to there, all the people coming out going, why aren't CVC doing this and why aren't they doing that? They
don't need to.
They don't need to.
They don't want to. Why would they want to?
Now they did make statements around helping to grow the game. Now, I know it's interesting to say, were those, because I'd have to reread those statements, and I'd be interested to read how they were worded in the actual contract, and then read how they were presented to the public, because they're presented to the public in a way that CVC are literally invested in this thing, and they are also going to help grow it for the benefit of the product, but also ultimately it grows it helps CVC.
Yes, it does.
So I'd be interested to work out, because there's a question mark for me over whether CVC have done everything that they can do or everything that they should do.
They haven't even fulfilled their minimum obligation, right? So in my mind, their minimum obligation is to use their clout as a huge city firm in order to get not the best talent, but the best talent for the price into the Premiership. So that would be what I'd say. They started off with Darren Childs, who was an absolute clown show of an administrator. He might have been a good bloke. I don't know him personally. He might have been very nice to his wife and kids. He was a dreadful administrator of Premiership rugby. They've sat back. They've seen the utter catastrophe, which is the Premiership rugby comms team. I mean, utter catastrophe. Incompetent in every way you can possibly categorise incompetent. And they've sat on their hands and done nothing. Now, I would have thought, if they were going to bring the absolute minimum, they could probably assign one of their office trainees to this job and do better than what they had. And that would just be to get rid of who they currently have and then bring in someone else. I mean, the comms team are a disgrace. There's no other way to put it. Now, I do think Massey Taylor, as an appointment, is a pretty good one, actually.
He generally talks a good game.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between talking a good game and actual effective, tangible output.
Yes. So
I don't think...
there's no output yet.
Yeah. He's got a bit of time, but there's work to be done.
Yeah, so there's absolutely nothing that I can see which he's achieved so far.
Well, I think everything is in stasis generally, and I've got no idea. I'm just looking at it, and the amount of people talking about 10-team league, 10-team league, 10-team league. I'm just thinking, are they just waiting? They're just sitting. They're sitting it out until London Irish haven't got any more money.
London Irish will sell, or someone else that we're not even aware of.
Newcastle.
Newcastle could be a good one.
That's what I wonder if that's what's happening. Because
the just on the Newcastle point, that's a good one because like the McGuigan deal that went through
to Gloucester
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Cracking deal out for Gloucester.
A great deal for Gloucester, and we were talking about them. They've lost Singleton.
Yeah.
The point that we actually said was prior to him going, they had 2 very good hookers.
One very good hooker and a hooker.
One very good hooker in Cecchino. Now they're back to having, for the end of this year and going forward, they're back to 2 very good hookers.
Yeah. So, it's a bit of a mixed bag across the other clubs. So, when you read the report which came out from the private equity board, why they needed a private equity guy to do it, I don't know. I mean, it didn't take... I get most people with GCSE business studies could have probably done this, but they did what they did. It's a mixed bag, isn't it? So Leicester Tigers, it's tough, but they turn over quite
They've got
lots.
Big revenue, therefore that can hide some sins.
Yeah, Exeter have run their club better than most.
Yeah,
Then
that's Exeter have made the hard decision, although it's easy when you've got Tony Rowe on both sides of the equation.
Yep.
To sell the hotel that they built to improve their revenues.
Yep, and there is
Northampton.
Who are really competent.
Yep.
I mean, say really competent. They're competent, right?
They're competent, yeah.
Everybody
They've
else...
cut their cloth accordingly in terms of revenues, in terms of costs when revenues dropped. Sensible. Their financial statement, their year-end accounts that came out very recently were positive in very difficult circumstances.
And Bristol and Bath have rich enough owners that so long as they're around, it doesn't really matter.
Sale are probably in the same boat there.
I'll say in that boat. Is that Simon Orange?
And Jed Mason.
And Jed, yeah.
Yeah.
Jed, if Jed's pumping it up.
They've got good backers. That's what I'll say. They've got good backers which have funded it pretty well so far. And then everything else is a bit of a mix. But like, you've lost Worcester, you lost Wasps now. I'm of the opinion that let it burn. If they're going to go, they're going to go. Just let them go. We'll have to muddle through some other way.
And as you have said before, that this just means that club as a professional Premiership entity is gone. The club is not gone.
Yeah.
Even if Wasps weren't coming back at Solihull FC, there will still be a clubhouse somewhere with all of those photos. There will still be people that wherever it pops up in the league pyramid, there will be people that feel attached to Wasps because their dad used to play for them, or they remember going and watching as a kid. They've still got the scarf and a shirt.
Let me say
they've got the European champion.
Yeah.
Wasps
jerseys.
will be fine.
So there will be, wherever Wasps were to pop up, if they went down to the very bottom of the league pyramid, they would get a bunch of people invested in Wasps that club would still exist. So these clubs, the only concern I have is when the club goes out of existence, as happened with Wakefield, for example.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So did you read the statement from Wasps this week?
I think I probably did, but remind me.
They were saying they would like an investor to come in. They'd like to go a spender. Let's not call them investors. Yeah. They'd like a spender to come in.
Yeah, it's like saying, I've just invested in a new BMW, a new car.
Yes.
Not investment.
Not investing.
The value of that asset is going one way.
Exactly right. I'll just leave it there. But if we have to be semi-pro, we'll be semi-pro. I think they should go semi-pro. They have so much support throughout the City of London from when they used to be there back in the day. They've got such a big, wealthy supporter base, but a quiet supporter base. So the problem they have is they are obviously in the Midlands now. It's a London club. A lot of those London-based guys are very successful in the city and whatnot. I think Wasps would be better off going back down to London and tapping into that as a semi-pro team. I think they'd do wonderfully well. But, who knows? I think Wasps will be fine ultimately. But I think they do need to go back to London. I think that would be a good start for them.
I think it might not be a bad thing as well. And
it's not.
I was having this chat the other night with a mate of mine, just like you, Phil. He's a United fan, and he's basically said we're going to get bought by an Emirati, a sheikh of some kind. The club's going to get bought. At which point, I probably will go. Do you know what? I've had my time and I had a great time, but I'm not really bothered. I'll go watch Salford City or
exactly right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like his club. So it's that phrase I overuse at the minute: the price of everything, the value of nothing.
Yeah, no, that point is an interesting one because I think there'll be a lot of people who will kind of they'll take that view because it suits to say, oh, I'm not going to support oil money or anything like that. I've got a mate who's a Newcastle United fan. He has never been more positive about Newcastle United
or oil
at the moment. Yeah,
weird how that.
He's got a holiday in Saudi Arabia.
Of course, he is.
He's pumping up the line. Neom's the line as the 100. Have you seen the line?
No. Oh yeah, that's outrageous in the desert.
Oh yes, I do know what you mean.
Unbelievable.
Well, that it is.
It's actually started. They've broken ground on it.
Yeah, they have. They've dug from the pictures I've seen. They've dug maybe 400 linear meters to a depth of about 2 meters, something like that. At approximately the full width, which I can't remember what it is, something like 200 or 400 meters. It's like less than 1/4% of the length of this. Like the scale of it is just stupid.
It's an indoor city, isn't it, basically?
Indoor city?
Yeah.
It's 170 kilometres long.
What?
Is the plan.
Yeah.
So that was like not far off.
I think Klaus should be living there, or just be us.
That's like here to Bristol kind of distance.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's just stupid.
That's That's insane.
It's almost like we've already spoken about one stupid construction project on this podcast. This is even more stupid than Sale trying to build.
It's not
across a bridge.
Just put it in that you can't.
Well, it's certainly less ambitious.
If you wanted to get away, you couldn't. Because it's like, well, go on. There's the desert, the arid desert for as far as the eye can see,
and it's mirrored on both sides, so you're going to be blasted with UV rays if you step outside. It's just.
I'm not sure it's a good idea, you know.
It's just crackers.
I'm not sure it's a good idea.
Anyway, yeah, he's incredibly positive about all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of people who would kind of show, the virtue signal that. I'm not saying this is what your mate is doing, but they would signal, that. I'm not going to support. They're dead to me. Loads of people did that when the Glazers came in.
FC United of Manchester started as a result.
Exactly. But then if United if they're properly run, which they haven't been for many, many years, since David Gill was chief executive, some people might say, then lots of people will come back.
They will. But it was nuts, like World Cup.
Me included.
World Cup final, you had that. You had Bin Salman, like... Yeah, I murdered Khashoggi.
Happens.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? Sit next to him and shake his hand? And
you have to. There's nothing else you can do.
Have you ever listened to...
It's vulgar, though, isn't it?
It is.
There's a Sam Harris episode with a journalist who interviewed MBS a few years ago. I think it might have even been post-Khashoggi. It's really, really interesting. I'd recommend listening to that. I wouldn't recommend everything by Sam Harris, but that is really interesting.
Especially more recently. He's gone a bit...
Yeah, he's odd. He's an odd fella.
He's out of his own head the last little while. But
I like some of his stuff.
Yeah,
a friend of ours,
great mind.
A friend of ours said he's one of those people he's so intelligent that he can convince himself that things that are just nonsense... that are true, and I think that is quite a good way of describing it.
In the same way that Will Greenwood went down the path of mind-altering party drugs, Sam Harris is a big fan of psychedelics.
He is,
and I don't think that's free.
Joe Rogan's philosophy is that anyone who wants to seek office as a politician needs to have 10 psychedelic experiences first.
Yeah, I'm not signing up to that. Sorry, Joe. Won't be doing that one in a hurry.
Especially, how old's Joe Biden? That's a good idea.
Yeah. Actually, does episodes of Dementia count as a psychedelic episode? I presume they're fairly similar.
Right. We've been building up, so we've talked for far too long already. But JB, there is one thing in particular that has caught your interest in the news that crosses over probably a little bit of grassroots and higher level rugby.
So this week it was announced that it was leaked. It was leaked by the brilliant Charlie Morgan of The Telegraph, or to him, not by him, I might add. That they are going to start a trial at level 3 and below, so that would be a national 1 and 2. That'd be national
1.
Yeah, Nat 1, North and South, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and right. So everything outside of Championship and Premiership.
Yeah. And the answer is no. The answer for me is no.
For anyone who hasn't seen what they've
the trial
suggested,
is tackling below the navel, which I think is madness. It is madness. So we've tried the nipple. We've tried just banning seatbelt tackles.
Yeah.
We've tried all this stuff, and now it's like, right, it's time for the navel, boys. And at this point, I don't want to play anymore. So I've said to my team now, if this comes in, I'm done. And I think a lot of lads are done. I don't want to coach it. I don't want to play it. It's not the game that I signed up for. Not the game that I like. So if you think about rugby at the moment, it's all very negative, and I've been quite insulated by that because I'm really losing interest in the Premiership. When I'm losing interest in the Premiership, God knows what everyone else is thinking, because I used to love the Premiership, but that's okay. I can still keep an eye on it, and I can go and play my local rugby. Well, they're basically taking that away from us now, and the RFU are completely lost, I think, at this point.
Why is the question? What problem are they trying to solve?
They're trying to solve concussions, right?
Is it just concussions? Is that it?
Yeah, concussions.
Yeah. It must be. But is
that a major issue?
Yeah,
lower levels.
I don't know.
It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not. Right? You just got to put yourself in the situation that you find yourself as a player, like me. People need to stop telling me I don't understand the risks. Yeah, I do understand the risks. Yeah, I can't tell you, risks in terms of my chance of winning the lottery or my chance of getting run over. I don't know the statistical risk, but I have a feeling that the risk I'm taking is okay, and therefore I'll continue to take it. Why do they think it's appropriate for these people from up high to say, okay, from now on we're going to do this? Well, I'm not going to do it. So this will be the last season of rugby this is my 20th season now. I'm pretty sure I could play on for a few more at least, but I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. And what annoys me is the way people apologise for it. So they'll say things like, maybe it'll make more free-flowing rugby. Imagine the offloading game. Don't care about the offloading game. The only reason an offloading game is amazing is because it's done in the context of extreme physical danger and tackles that can stop an offloading game. Simple as that.
And nobody's stopping any coach from focusing on an offloading game.
Exactly.
Some teams do. Some teams do. It requires a high degree of skill, which is why it is quite often not done.
Yeah, it does. I mean, look, there's pros and cons of everything. We've got a set of laws, and the laws they can be tweaked, but broadly speaking, we want a game which reflects the game that the previous generation played, the generation before that, generation before that. Rugby has changed drastically, but just to change it wholesale is awful. Now, another thing that they'll do, and they did this with the concussions and the high tackle protocols, is they convene a panel of the great and the good. So if you dare question what the RFU are up to, or on social media or anywhere else, the first thing they'll come back to you and say is, well, you don't think you know more than Wayne Barnes, do you? You don't think you know
appeals to authority the last few years is
horrendous,
out of hand.
Yeah, horrendous. To which I say, I don't think any of these players have played a single second at level 7. Maybe they have, but I don't think they have. This is our domain. We should have a say in what happens. And of course, what the RFU will do, or any other body that wants to change the laws, is they will consult, but they'll pre-filter the people that they're consulting with, or they'll get them and expose them to garbage data. I mean, I say garbage data. The data might be correct, but if the data is correct now, why wasn't it not correct 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when the game was unsafer because of all the fighting and the lack of policing of high shots, which has obviously become a lot less prevalent? It's clearly a safer game. It's clearly a safer game. So the reason I say it's trash data is because we were comfortable with the risks before, but because it's been expressed differently now, people are getting less okay with it on the consultancy level.
If you were handed or if general rugby population was handed a guarantee like this will solve all problems and not,
I still wouldn't do it,
and not cause any unintended unintended consequences. Some people may take that. I understand why you wouldn't, but this is what I'm saying. One, is it actually going to solve the problem they're trying to solve? And secondly, the unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Well, unintended consequences, just leave the game. Yeah, I would just say everyone just leave the game. I think it's about time that rugby players... It's about time that we understand why rugby players play the game, and it's because there is a risk. And that risk is really important. If you take away the risk, it's pointless. So we can see the RFU. The RFU, just... In the same way the National Trust don't like old buildings, the RFU don't like rugby players. I think that is...
So, and let me make the same point, express it, I think, in the way you are. As we've talked about many times before, people don't play rugby because this game, rugby existed. It is that rugby exists to fulfil a primal need.
100%.
That's why rugby exists.
Yeah.
And what actually is happening, I think, is that the people who have a primal need for physical challenge, excess testosterone, masculinity, these things that have become dirty words, apparently, those people that actually are the ones that rugby is there for or originated because of are the ones that it feels like they're trying to shut out. And the aim of being inclusive to people outside of that traditional mould, which I'm all in favour of. Everyone who wants to play rugby should play rugby, but it feels like it is a zero-sum game where, in order to open the door and make it massively inclusive, you're actually
pushing out the people.
You're actually pushing out the people that the game existed for.
That's why it's unique. It's like a strongman. Giving everyone lighter weights so more people can become a strongman. Why? That's not what strongman exists for. Or limiting the speed of 100-meter runners. Why? That's why. Well, that's why it exists.
It's like the standards, the physical standards to enter military, police, and all the rest of it.
Getting low.
They get dropped because they haven't got enough people coming through. The net consequence is you have not lower quality.
Yeah, look, there's a really good saying like most men live lives of quiet desperation. Probably true, actually. And that's what rugby is there to stop, really. You're in your stupid cubicle office every single day. You only see a handful of people throughout the week, and you only see a handful of people from a limited range of backgrounds. The reason you go to the rugby club is because you see a wide range of backgrounds from a wide range of people, and it's awesome because you're there to engage in the same activity, which is effectively the bullying of 15 other men. You either get bullied or you do the bullying. There's very rarely a game where it's perfectly even. And we sign up to this week in, week out because we like to be a body of men achieving things. And that's what we like to do.
And nature...
risk is part of that.
Nature creates hierarchies, and in the animal kingdom, that's by size and strength and skill in having a little, like, rutting stags and stuff. Yeah, but that's what you do within your team Tuesday, Thursday, and that's what you do against other teams on a Saturday.
The RFU have lost their way completely.
I actually agree with that.
It now exists to perpetuate the business of the RFU. It doesn't exist to serve us. It doesn't exist to help the game. The most disgraceful thing which they're doing, aside from this, is the promotion of touch rugby as some sort of alternative. And the people that say, it'll increase skills, don't care. I don't care what you think you're increasing. I don't care what you think your law change will bring. I don't care about any of it. The sport is the sport, and you've got to leave it. If you want to tweak things here and there, like, can you collapse them all? Can you not collapse them all? Seatbelt tackles, fine, okay, we'll do that. But when you completely change the game and say, okay, only tackling by the navel, forget it. And the people that should be most ashamed of themselves, or the people that full-throatedly support this, I think it's awful what has happened to people like Alex Popham and Steve Thompson. I think it's genuinely dreadful.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
However, and there is a however, their tragedy should not be used to change what we do on a weekend. They got paid to do what they did, and therefore there is a moral quandary. Should you pay men in order to potentially hide symptoms, to potentially put them in a situation where if they don't play or don't continue their career, they can't continue their lifestyle, their standard of living's affected? There's a real moral quandary there. There is no moral quandary for me or any of my teammates.
Any more than saying to someone, I'm going to go and cycle on a Sunday morning down some back country lanes.
Exactly. If I get concussed, I might never play again. If I get concussed, I might play again. But nobody is paying me to play. Right? Nobody's forcing me to play. We're not professionals. We are amateurs engaging in an amateur activity. If they want to make this change, okay, do it with the England team, RFU. Do it in the place where it affects you. And it affects your jobs, it affects your salary, it affects your funding. Go and do it at the international level. Don't mess around with us. Put your money where your mouth is, because that is where the problem is. There'll be far more concussions playing for England than there will be for Didsbury.
Do you know what my conspiracy theory on this is? On this suggestion?
I don't think they want men playing contact sport.
No, my conspiracy theory on this suggestion is what they have already decided is they are going to ring fence the top 2 divisions.
Yep.
And so by creating from level 3 down, effectively a different sport.
Yeah, I think
it might just make that it might make that easier in people's minds.
Yeah, I think
already
you're right.
It detaches the two psychologically on a psychological level, and then they can do it.
I don't know if you're 100% right, but I think there's certainly some mileage in what you're saying. Ring fence atop, that is your blood sport or whatever it may be, and underneath we've got this
amateur,
passive, flimsy, just horrible game. A pale impression of rugby, which is a mixture of.
I don't know what it would.
Touch.
I'm just imagining, and I'm trying to get in. The issue I have is that the type of game rugby being, it fast changes of direction, dynamic. You can go from being a player in the defensive line, not taking a tackle, to the person making the tackle in a split second.
Yeah. They want
and how can you tackle below the navel unless you're running round bent at the waist?
Well, didn't you say something interesting, Phil, about the running style of the attacker?
They're going to make. You get penalised if you don't run upright.
Yeah, Charlie Morgan's tweet said ball carriers to be encouraged to run upright, which does.
You can only encourage them if you penalise them when they don't.
Yeah.
Run upright. No.
So normally, often with these things, these law changes, I'm more kind of optimistic and positive about them, and I think some of the World Rugby changes, particularly around the
letting the boys play, speeding it up.
Speeding up, all good. I think the high tackle framework has not been perfect, but I think that's generally been a positive change.
Yep.
This, I'm surprised at this, and I am not particularly optimistic about this for several reasons. But one of them is that if you look at the statistics, the tackles where concussions are least likely is where the tackler is bent at the waist and the ball carrier is upright. That is the least likely tackle to cause a head injury to either party.
I mean, the least likely tackle to cause concussion is touch rugby.
This
shouldn't be the metric that we judge a game on.
No, and you're trying to force something. So there's so many reasons why this just strikes me as such a bad idea. For one thing, you're trying to force like unnatural movements in this, like the ball carrier going upright, and like forcing, like Tim, you mentioned the change of direction one. If you look at Gary Ringrose and James Hume, which was an accidental head-on-head that led to Hume going off, it was only 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was a high tackle. It was a red card or yellow card at the time. It could even be a red card in line with the framework, but it was just a rugby incident, and you're trying to litigate for all possible outcomes, all possible risky outcomes, some of which are totally unpredictable, and it's going to have massive unintended consequences.
The future of rugby, I think, is so bleak if the RFU get their way, and also the cheerleaders around the RFU. The RFU has got such disdain for its fans now. From Bill Sweeney not singing Swing Low to the introduction of touch. The thing which you've said just then just makes so much sense about the ring fencing and the game but below. And I can just see this hellish future where rugby clubs are meant to be some all-inclusive, semi-contact kind of social club, and the only indication of success is how many numbers you can get in and how many different types of people, but nothing about the sport, nothing about the skill, nothing about the reason that we all love it in the first place. And actually, it'll appeal to nobody.
It's kind of how the NFL exists. No, other than the odd little,
but where is like
park social league? There's no elite level rugby, American football outside of the NFL.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, there's no clubs, is there?
No, exactly.
It's totally different. From
framework.
From grassroots up, it's totally different.
I would like
the college system.
I think we're getting.
But you're right. There is no adults play.
Yeah, if you don't get into your high school team, you play your last game at junior high. If you don't get into the college team, you've played your last game at high school, and university same goes. But
they still don't have this thing with local clubs, and that's the thing which frightens me. That's the thing which really frightens me. I think you're right. I think there is probably a decision that has been made somewhere by some lofty academics in some place, and I just don't think they're very comfortable with us playing contact. And the biggest danger to what we do on a weekend is going to come from the administrators of the game.
I think what's ironic is, if that pans out to be the case, is exactly what you pointed out as the moral quandary. People do things every weekend, putting themselves at great personal risk because it's a hobby they enjoy, whether that's cycling, whether that's scuba diving, rock climbing, horse riding, you name it. That's a conscious choice which individuals make, knowing what's involved. And at amateur levels, well, it's a fully informed choice. There's as you've said a number of times, there's never been more data and information and awareness.
I'm not sure what you could tell me to stop playing. I've got two.
You've got to tackle below the navel.
Oh yeah, done. So if you think about it, you could tell me every single statistic you wanted. I'll just look back over the last 50 years of rugby. Well, they still played. Mm-hmm. So what is it you're telling me? These must be lies. Or if they're lies, it's nowhere near as dangerous as you're making out. There's something not right about all of this. It's like they're trying. Do you know what it is? It's like they've got, like you say, they've got the top teams, and they're trying to make a structure to manufacture as many fans, to pump money to these top teams as they possibly can.
Well, I think when you look at what's going on in corporate structures, when you look at what's going on with things like ESG and stuff, this is activism.
There is an element of that, isn't there?
I think there's a big chunk of this which is activism, which...
when you listen to how people talk about clubs, like Ugo Monia, I know he was sort of taken out of context, but there is something in it when he says, oh, well, maybe there shouldn't be so much alcohol so we could be more inclusive. Maybe. Maybe we shouldn't be playing be playing contact because it'll put people off and they want a non-contact option. Maybe. It's just not what we do. And I tell you the thing which really, really irks me is...
Well, touch rugby exists already.
When Granger goes round... And Granger, for those of you that don't know, Steve Granger, his name is, who is the head of the community game, he goes around and he gives these presentations, of which I've seen one, and he gives it with this lady who does the touch rugby bit. And she's talking about setting up structures for safe... I don't want anybody in adult rugby talking about safeguarding to me, ever.
Talking if with kids...
Yeah,
different
but when we're talking
matter.
about safeguarding of touch rugby players to ensure that there's no pressure for them to play contact rugby, you think, hang on, what's going on here? What is going on here? So,
just in the infantilisation of grown adults is the dropping levels of testosterone is it's all tied in. Like there was a stat the other day in an article, like because it's coming up to Christmas and toys get bought for kids. Something like 1/3, or it might be I can't remember what it was exactly, but a massive chunk of the toys that are sold every year are adult men buying it for themselves.
Whoops.
We might be the wrong place to be discussing that.
Lovely selection of model planes you've got, JB.
They're not toys.
They're not toys. Lego. I've got some Lego.
Yeah.
I have bought myself a couple of Lego things to do over Christmas.
Got things to do, right?
Otherwise, I just end up drinking for 10 days straight.
Yeah, right.
I think if things carry on, I'd like to see a different union set up, or a different organisation to administer.
I'd ask two things, like
grassroots game.
Put Rob Baxter in charge of it, or Dana White.
Or Steve Diamond.
Steve Diamond, yeah.
Steve Diamond, Dana White combo.
So we'll see how that one plays out, because it was as you mentioned before, Jay. It was just a kind of leaked information. It's not. There's been no official announcement on that yet. I do.
Maybe they're doing what politicians are doing. Yeah, dropping a little. Just see what the reaction is.
And do you know what? All of the beta male podcasts out there, all of the neckbeard soy drinking losers, are going to be all over this. Oh, as long as it makes it a bit safer. Forget it, boys. Forget it. I don't mind you having your opinions on things, but when it actually comes to what affects me on a Saturday.
What has the reaction been? I haven't really seen any.
Overwhelmingly negative.
Okay, well that's good.
To be fair, I've only seen little bits. I've seen your reaction, and
which is kind of
my personal reaction was, like I said before, I'm normally more positive about this. This to me strikes me as
game's gone soft.
A big step too far.
Game's gone soft, and what they'll try and do is they'll try and weaponise that phrase. The game's gone soft brigades come out, which is a derogatory term. It's meant to paint you as some sort of bigot or loser or gammon or it's like that. The type of person that uses that insult, and it's just there to cajole you into shutting up. and I think we need to probably reclaim that.
Well, yeah, let's see if they do use this to test the water. Just on that, an interesting... I've got this first hand from a politician as to what they do when they like to... or the generic mass of politicians, so they will release the bad news ahead of time. That'll get leaked ahead of time, and the good news will be leaked. Will be presented in the official announcement. So you have 5 days to digest the bad news, get over it.
Like when they
and
were
then the good news, the official announcement seems more positive. Than
Like when they were introducing more COVID lockdowns, they'd leak that to us.
Yeah,
so we could digest it, and then when they came out and said, "Don't worry, we're only going to take most of your freedoms, not all of them."
Yeah, you can still go for one bit of exercise per day outside.
Yeah, feel free to go at least 5 kilometres away from your house.
Yeah. 5 kilometres.
Do you remember? This is going on.
Bear in mind, all the stuff we said at the start of the podcast was obviously a joke about this being Christmas Day. I just need to stay well off any of this. When I have a drink on Christmas Day, I need to stay well clear of this.
Yeah.
Board games, anyone?
If people even mention COVID, I just go. I skip the nuance now. My general view is we should hang 2 of the scientists and 2 of the politicians. And which ones we do, I don't mind. We just draw it at random. And that will be a message for all future politicians and all scientists that this is not acceptable. We do it from Whitehall.
I do like when we were boozing. We've done this a few times, but when we were boozing in Bath, it was September 2020. It was peak COVID.
Yeah, it was.
And we were given a week of freedom, even though we were in tier 3 or whatever we were.
Makes me fuck. Oh god, the tears. Oh my god, I get really angry.
But we had a rule that as soon as you mention anything to do with the C word, you've got to do 2 fingers off of whatever it was. And that is a good rule to enforce.
That's a great rule.
Do you know where we really let ourselves down in Bath? And I keep running this scenario over and over in my head.
There was the curfew, so we all got kicked out onto the street at 10
there was
o'clock.
something we did really, really poorly. So we're all at a table outside, and we're having a few drinking games, and things got a little bit out of hand, and I'm pretty sure somebody drank their beer from their shoe.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing. I can't remember exactly what happened. So we ordered some more drinks. Sorry, you can't have any more drinks. You've been drinking your beer out of a shoe. Now, normally, I would say, yes, you're absolutely right, let's go. But there's a saying, isn't there? If you owe the bank £10, that's your problem. If you owe the bank £10 million, that's their problem. We hadn't paid for a single drink yet. It was on the tab. We should have demanded our extra beers.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I got steamrolled like that.
Yeah.
When I have leverage, I like to use it. We should have used our leverage. It plays on my mind that.
Am I just making it up? Did they actually say that it was a...
It was the shoe drinking.
Yeah, but
they said it was perfectly.
It was a COVID reason for the shoe stripper not being able to.
It was a COVID law.
It's not.
It wasn't your shoe or something.
Yeah. Is that what they said?
Yes.
Oh my god!
We might be misremembering that. Do not quote us on that.
Yeah, it's something like it wasn't your shoe.
That was at the time,
COVID breach.
That was at the crazy time when there was both the curfew, so everyone was out on the street and trying to get a kebab and a taxi at 10 p.m. sharp, or if you're in London going onto the tube, everyone at the same time. But there was also the brief period of time when you had to have a meal.
Yeah, was it? No, I don't think we did.
Did we not have to?
No, we didn't.
All that
did we dodge
Scotch egg bollocks?
Yeah.
So
what constitutes
a substantial meal?
A substantial meal. Yeah.
So we're watching the clock. This is the other thing. Watching the clock just tick down, because if we can't drink for the 2 hours late into the night, we'll just move the 2. We'll still get our 2 hours. I mean, we still got.
Yeah. We'll just start at
11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So literally, as we went to 11, we're in there. 5 glasses of wine, please go. And that was our weekend. Like, it was flat out from the second that when we landed in Bath on Friday afternoon.
And you had to
always. Did we leave Sunday?
Yeah, we did.
So Saturday, I know.
It was one thing having to follow these rules because establishments were enforcing them, but it's quite another when you would just, let's not go there.
Yeah.
You have
bloody good night.
Chats to family members.
It was good
and
fun,
stuff
actually.
Yeah, good.
It was good fun.
In spite of all of that, it was good fun.
Yeah.
And partly because of it was good fun.
And if you're stood up, you've got to be wearing a mask. If you're sat down, you're okay.
Yes, of course.
It's
God, it makes me angry.
God.
Makes me so angry.
Well, anyway, we've gone far too long.
Yeah. Well, I developed quite early on. I developed quite a thick skin, going on a train every day back and forth from London, and I got used to the tuts and the questions and just saying nope.
Nope. Same here. Just nope.
So
I got into it. I basically got into a fight on the tram. Someone started screaming at me on the platform. It was horrendous.
Yeah,
I didn't have a mask on.
I picked my battles because as soon as I got to work and I had to comply and just go along with it because it was at work and obviously
we've got two absolutely psychotic secretaries who if you didn't wear a mask they would go nuts. They would go absolutely wild, and like we had to have a screen up between us and our clients. Fortunately, that is all in the past.
Yes,
and Klaus has got other plans for 2023, so let's focus on battling them. And in the case you've got leverage right now, you are saying this podcast may not exist if RFU bring in these laws.
Honestly, Tim, if they did and I didn't play the game anymore, the only thing keeping me in rugby was watching the Premiership, and that's terrible. It's not terrible, but the allure of it has gone, hasn't it? The magic of the Premiership has gone. You have to ask yourself, what would keep you watching the game? I don't know what would keep me watching the game. What would keep you watching it?
So,
our amazing Patreon fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be... I think I'd end up having to watch it because I had to watch it. I don't want to be there because I've loved doing rugby for so long. The same way, for the same reason I will never accept money to... or never accepted money to play because A, I wasn't good enough, or coach. But also you don't want to turn what you love into a job. So like, what would be the point? You'd have to wait for the internationals, and international rugby doesn't even excite me that much now. But if that's the only thing left, pretty dark, isn't it? Pretty dark.
To end on a positive, like
it's not happened yet.
It's not happened yet. There's a lot we do love. Actually, I've really enjoyed this year. The focus and refocus and extra time we've given over to grassroots rugby.
Yeah, and Talk H, basically, if we win every game with a bonus point, we get promoted again. So there you go.
And
nothing can stop us.
And just as we've brought that to the table a little bit more, that's only happened more so because that's connected with a lot of people who are engaged in the game and playing and listening right now. So we'll keep on doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah.
The bitter end.
Yeah, that's quite.
Yeah, this is a bitter.
So we'll be back, won't we, midweek with all the games and roundup with a basically standard podcast.
Yeah.
And chatting in detail about Steve Borthwick.
Indeed.
Yes.
I'll have spoken to Wiggy by then.
Nice.
Really? Tell you what, that's a hell of a job that he's got.
Yeah.
It's also and this, I think this is what's going to be my first question tomorrow, Christmas Eve, which will be tomorrow. I think my first question is going to just reflect on the fact that his playing career's come to an end before I ask him about the coaching, because it's a hell of a career.
It really is.
It's a hell of a career.
But when's
to win
last time?
Premiership with 3 different teams. He's the only, we did discuss this, didn't we? He's the only man to have done that.
Yeah.
I seem to recall.
So I can't think of a single other... I can think of players that have been player coaches, but I can't think of a player that has done what he's done, which is be... Well, actually, he is a player and a coach, but he's not the head coach. So usually a player coach is someone who you just want, who's a brilliant player, and then you just pay him a little bit more for the coaching.
So is it 7 premierships?
No, it happened... wasn't Francois Pienaar a player coach?
Possibly.
I think he probably was. I'm sure he was.
Francois Pienaar.
What did I just say?
Do you mean Ruan Pienaar?
No, Francois Pienaar. For Saracens.
Was he?
I think he was, yeah.
Was John Schmidt? No, I don't think he was just a player.
I think he was just a player.
But Wiggy, he's 7 premiership titles, 3 clubs included in that.
Yeah.
5 European titles. And
5 European?
3 European titles for Saracens, sorry.
Yes.
And the most appearances of any player in the Premiership.
Incredible. And X number of England caps as well. Arguably there should have been more England caps.
Yeah. Remarkable.
Yeah, he really is a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going for some beers.
Yeah. Thank you for your support. Patreon.com/EggChasers, or else just hit subscribe and tell a mate and let the boys play. Nice.
I am also going to get some beers.
If you're a Shark Tank fan or business junkie, check out the podcast Another Bite. Each week, Another Bite breaks down the biggest success stories and most disastrous failures to come out of Shark Tank. The hosts break down each company's pitch, analyze the deals that were or weren't made, and answer the million-dollar question, are they still a company? Whether you're an entrepreneur looking for tips or a Shark Tank fan that just wants to relive the drama, Another Bite's your deep dive into the world of Shark Tank. Just search for Another Bite in your favorite podcast app, like the one you're listening to right now.